Oh, Rita, it is so awesome to have you. We are doing these interviews, and this is for our Embodied Truth, Finding Ways to Move Together. And you are part of the amazing cast of parents. So I'd love to start this interview that Daniel and I are doing with our beautiful family cast members. Can you tell us a little bit about you, who you are, and what you do in this world?
Well, so I am a mom of two girls, young women now. I guess I have to stop calling them girls at some point. One is almost 19. Well, she'll be 19 in January, and one just turned 14 yesterday. Live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and what I do for a living to pay my bills is I'm a nurse, but I work for a medical device company doing clinical education for respiratory products. So been married for 22 years. I have to think about that for a second. And yes, and we just added a new puppy to our household this year. So we have a 10-month-old, very large giant schnauzer who is full of puppy energy. So
that's great, Rita. So it's, being involved in Embodied Truth is a little outside your normal activities. And so could you talk a little bit about why you had an interest in participating in the project?
So I was very interested in participating, first of all, just because it was something that I, never done before, but just the topic still really hit me and hit home for me, just with thinking about how race and gender truly have impacted my life, the way I raise my kids, even, the neighborhood that I live in, those types of things. And so I figured that I would go out on a limb and join some people who are much more involved in the artistic world than I am, but just trusted that I would be able to fit in somehow and be able to contribute and to learn from other parents.
So what are some of the challenges for you in being a parent? And go as big or as small as you'd like.
Honestly, I think for me, the biggest challenge in being a parent is the balance between planning for the future and enjoying the now, making sure that my kids are able to be competitive, in this world. I hate that they have to be competitive, but I know that they do have to be, because if they do possibly have plans of going to college and and all those other things, there's a series of decisions that have to be made before that about grades and homework and all those things. So I just feel like sometimes it's a struggle to sort of put a lot of pressure on them to do things now that are much more for, a future payoff, and then worrying about how much does that take away from how much they were able to just enjoy today. So I think I'm just always struggling with worrying about setting them up for success in the future, and then wondering if I did them a disservice because of whatever they weren't able to do, just in the, fun type of thing today. So I think for me, that's one of the biggest challenges. I think, obviously raising will be two Black women is a challenge, just trying to make sure that they don't ever get put in a position where their self-esteem is coming from, the outside world. I think as Black women, you really can't have your self-esteem come from anywhere but the inside. So just making sure that they are grounded in that they don't ever feel inferior to those around them who might, look and act very different from them, or, come from a different type of family background. So, and then just making sure that they also at the same time understand their privilege, because, they are privileged enough to be able to, be raised in a household where they have, two incomes coming in, and they can take private lessons and, play club lacrosse and a lot of things that other kids don't get the chance to do. So it's like a balance between understanding where you could be disadvantaged a little, but then also understanding where you could be advantaged and making sure that you keep sight of that and then help other people along the way that might not be in your position. So yeah, I think that was a long answer, but
no, but it makes me think
great.
of something else. Can I add something to that, Danielle?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. So in this raising these beautiful Black girl women, do you see them in a space of having to navigate a white space so that it is, I am maybe one, if the only few in the space, and how that is? Because yes, it's a sense of privilege, but at the same time, you're dealing with a lot of other things coming at you.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, and I could definitely see. I don't know if you've heard the term, code switching in my older daughter, just because she does have, different, I would say, groups of friends, and you will definitely notice her maybe talk and act a little bit different, when she's around a certain group of people. Or I've even caught myself saying, if I heard them maybe just talking a lot of slang or something like that, saying, hey, when to not talk like that, right? Like, if you're, in school, you're around, teachers, you're, in a situation where you are sort of possibly getting judged based on your appearance and presentation, like you have to turn that off. And so I just feel like there's this constant talk about, like when you can be a certain way, when you can sort of be yourself, and when you sort of have to put on a face of someone that maybe not your everyday self. And I have to do it every day. I mean, the way that I talk in my home is not the same way that I talk around my coworkers or my customers. I mean, I work for a really large company, and out of my entire division, when I think about the whole, 50 states, out of 50 plus people who have my position, I think that there's me and one other woman of color and one man, and that's it. And it's just us out of 50. So, I'm used to being in that world, and so, hopefully I can give them some advice on how to navigate that. I hate that it even has to be like that. But I think that's just sort of still where we are at this point, and we just sort of have to deal with what we have. So, yeah.
I mean, I think this is great. I think it's already kind of touched on kind of both. We have these lists of questions, and I think we've already kind of you've already kind of answered these questions. So I'm just gonna, if it's okay, Kimani, I'm just gonna kind of fold these two questions together and see if there's anything else Rita can reflect on. So one of the question was how do race and gender inform and affect your choices as a parent? Which, again, you've already said some things. Maybe there's some things more to say about that. But then also thinking about race, class, gender, and how that affects their education. So there's more general, just in terms of being a parent, but then also how does it affect them specifically in, like, how do those things impact, inform, affect your parenting and your child's education or development? So it's kind of like a broad question, but I think we already kind of started talking about those things. So I don't know if there's anything else that comes to mind as...
Yeah, I'll start with the gender one, because I do think that regardless of your race, when it comes to gender, when you're raising males versus females, there are some different things that you have to consider. So, I mean, even just thinking about the fact that, my oldest went off to college, she's in her freshman year in college, and just having to go over with her all of the I would say female safety type of things, that, hey, make sure that, someone knows where you're going. If you happen to be somewhere, you don't ever, there's rules. You don't ever take a drink directly from someone. If someone wants to buy you a drink, you go to, wherever, and you sort of have that bartender pour it, and then you take it directly from them. I mean, things like that for the most part, I'm not sure that men get that same type of, conversation. If you go somewhere with a group of girls, everyone, leaves together. You don't ever, allow one of your girlfriends, to not leave with the group. So just the whole safety aspect of worrying about your daughters out there in the world, I think, is something that definitely affects us. I think even when it comes to freedom around the neighborhood, how much you sort of let them wander and roam by themselves, if they're, girls versus boys and those types of things. For education, we live in a very hyper segregated area, very hyper segregated. And we're in a little bit of a conundrum when it comes to what I would sort of call middle class Black families, because even though I can afford to go and live in other places in the suburbs, I never felt comfortable living in those places. Many of the suburbs here are just not very welcoming to people of color. And I just didn't want to put my kids through that, having to go to a school that not only would they end up being, one of the few minorities, but then knowing that just some of the treatment in the suburbs are, I would say, much more blatant and outright when it comes to just sort of, racist acts. And it makes me sad because, hey, I want my kids to be able to have a good education and live in a safe area too. And I've, been able to get myself to a place that I could afford to live there, and then only to find out that, no, you still can't really live there because now you got this whole other set of complexities. So we made the choice. We live in Milwaukee, but then that sort of brings in, so now, what do we do for school? So we were fortunate enough to be able to get them into the Shorewood School District, which I consider, even though it's, definitely majority white, definitely more welcoming for minorities than probably what I would say any other school district around here in this area is. But it's just this constant set of trade-offs that you're just constantly sort of going through, and makes it complicated. Like, I just, you just sometimes wish that you had the easy decision, like, oh, I like this neighborhood, I like the school district, let's go live there. And, and sometimes it's just when you have color, it just makes things more complicated, that sometimes it's not always about, can you afford that house? It's also about how you're going to be treated in that neighborhood and that school district and all of those things. So, we've definitely been fortunate there. I mean, we've had I'd say a couple of small incidences, but nothing that I would consider damaging to them. I do wish that they had more people around them that looked like them. But I think that we've done as best that we could with the situation that we have at this point.
So, I don't know. It's just hearing you speak on your experience as a dealing, navigating this world as a woman of color is very much similar to, how it's always the race factor that we have to include. It's not the easy, oh yes, great school district, great place to live, let's live there. No. We have to see what is the kind of racial makeup of this neighborhood. Are they, it's always, that's forefront of my mind. So yes.
Yeah.
If you could kind of put your parenting approach, your experience into one word, what would that be?
One word. Oh. Learning. I would say learning. This is a constant learning experience. Every day you think you have things figured out, and then you find out you don't. Kids just change so rapidly. Their needs change rapidly. You as a person, change. And so you're just constantly trying to navigate this world of, yes, it was like this yesterday, but now it's like this today. And then what is it going to be like tomorrow? So I would just say learning, because I think that out of all the things that I've ever done in my life, being a parent is what has made me learn the most about just the world in general and about myself. So I would say learning. Yeah.
And now kind of thinking into the future a little bit, thinking about when your daughters maybe someday become parents of themselves, what kind of one bit of wisdom or advice would you offer them as they kind of start their journey into being a parent?
I would say remain curious. Always remain curious and never feel like whatever answer or conclusion you've come to has to remain the answer or conclusion that you've come to. I think that I had a lot of, I think, just sort of strong opinions, especially when Trinity was younger, about, you have to do this and you have to do that. And you have to have this very stringent, bedtime and schedule. And, and then with the second one, you think, did any of that actually make a difference? I mean, I know kids need to have a schedule, but it's like, did I really have to, cut out of that really fun social situation 30 minutes early for her to go take her nap? And so I think that's what I would offer them, is just to remain curious and to not get stuck down in a decision that you've made and be unwilling to reconsider your position on that thing is my biggest one.
That's some great advice. I'm hearing that. That's for sure.
Yes, I think we're both hearing that. So one more. Are you good with that, Danielle?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that's good.
So tell me, Rita, coming into Embodied Truth, what have you gained, learned? What has you've been inspired by, or just what is something, a takeaway for you from being a part of this project?
So I think one of the things for me was that getting together with a group of people who we all had some pretty different backgrounds, to find out that we all shared in a lot of the same struggles, a lot of the same fears. And we all want the same thing for our kids, safety, security, the ability to explore themselves and to be authentic and have fun. And we, all sort of had this worry that we were either possibly helping or hindering that, depending on what we were doing as parents at the time. So for me, I think that was comforting, because sometimes as a parent, you're like, I am doing this all wrong. And then you look at other parents and you start comparing yourself, and, they seem to be doing things so much better than me, or, what are they doing that I'm not? Why did their kid love to read and mine just wants to watch TV, or, whatever it is. And so I think for me, it was comforting to be able to know that we all share in some of those challenges. I think I was very inspired by people who were willing to come together and be very vulnerable. I mean, I think for me, that was probably the most difficult thing, especially starting off. I mean, only knowing Daniel, I had briefly met you, Kimani, but it was, for just a really, really short amount of time. And so opening up and talking about those things to people that I didn't know, that is definitely not in my, what I would consider normal realm of doing things. I tend to be an undersharer. Even with the people that are close to me, I just tend to not share feelings a whole bunch. So that was something that for me was a personal growth factor, that I'm hoping that I can take away and continue to draw back on, because seeing that, hey, it turned out okay, and I actually got a lot out of it. So why not share with yourself? Because in turn, other people share with you, and then you learn and grow together. So I think that was something that I definitely took away as a positive and that I enjoyed.
Thank you. Yes, your part in this was really, really important. So thank you for being a part of Embodied Truth.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Have a good rest of your day, Rita.
Yes, Rita.
You too. Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Have a nice holidays. Bye.
You too.